if we disagree with someone about something, if we stay at that level of the thing we disagree about, we'll be stuck. We'll most likely be in conflict. The only solution from that level is to win, or to win the other person over. Basically, we have to change the other person, convince them they're wrong, and to adopt our way. And I found that to be very difficult, if not impossible, or at the very least, it's a slow process. And so a hack or a tool is to go beneath that, to find what's underneath that, to get to the root where we find common ground. And often we want to tell ourselves that it's about that stuff, that thing that we disagree about, that's what this is about. But usually there's something way deeper. And if we get there, we find not only do we agree, we have the same basic root needs or wants. And from there, we can work our way up. And maybe the thing we are fighting about, we can find a solution, or actually convince each other, or be on the same page. But at the very least, we can find a way to work through it. One example might be money. At the surface, one of us wants to spend money on, say, going out, expensive meals or nice meals or luxurious hotels, that kind of thing, trips to exotic locales. The other person might see that as extravagant, or to them money's about freedom and not having to do what other people tell them, to being able to choose their own way. And if all the money is spent, then they have to go to work and do what some boss tells them. And so for them, this might seem like completely incompatible, never going to find a way. But if we get to the root feeling about what the money means to us, about what we want for us, it's usually the same thing. Somewhere in there is joy, freedom, expression. At the very least, we both want to enjoy life. And if we're in a committed relationship, marriage, let's say, with family and responsibilities, it might seem impossible. And yet, if we connect on what this means to us, what the feeling, what's at stake if we don't get it. And usually there's some childhood stuff. Our parents didn't let us do these things, or we weren't able to, we didn't have the means, that kind of thing. And so now that we're adults, we want to do it one way or the other. So if it's wanting, let's say, fine dining, we can boil down what that means to us. If it's the taste, and how can we have good food and do it in a way that's not as expensive? Can we cook it ourselves? Can we do a picnic? Can we get takeout and skip paying on service and the ambiance of the restaurant that might be expensive? Maybe we go to a beach somewhere or a scenic locale, have a nice picnic, sunset, these kinds of things. That's like a simple way to find a way that we both win. Like we get to do the things and we don't spend a ton of money. And at the same time, we can come to some mutual thing of like, we're saving this time, and then we'll put some aside for the big thing at some point. And the key to all this is inner work, as in like we go within and ask ourselves, what does this mean to us? Like, what is this really about? Because it's never about the thing. So often we get the thing. Let's say we go out to an expensive restaurant, spends tons of money, and then 5 minutes later, the experience is gone, and we're back to feeling the way we felt. Or the next day, it's forgotten, that kind of thing. As a personal example that I had, I often get up early. So I get up early and I'm like, okay, what does my partner want to do? I know the things she likes. And I started looking, and as I was looking, I'm like, oh man, these are expensive. All this costs money. Like, it seems like it's so extravagant, and like, why pay for something? We could easily do this for free. And so I'm feeling pressured and scared and like, scarce, like, oh, I'm spending too much money. We already went out once this week. Like, this seems... So it's creating all this like angst and anxiety and not feeling good for me. So I did some breathing, did a little meditation. I'm like, why do it this way? Like, how about I change what I'm searching for to be the things that I want? So I'm like, I can just search for the free stuff. And so I did that, and then stuff came up. There were 2 or 3 things that were either very cheap, didn't cost anything, and I found 2 or 3 within a half hour. And so I'm like, this feels good to me. So I sent off to 3 things, and it turns out 1, and then maybe it was 2 of them, fit in her category. It fed her too. And so it was a win-win, instead of like we'd had a scenario earlier in the year where I had picked something that I wasn't really wanting to do, but I felt pressured and I did it, ended up being a total disaster, lose-lose. Basically, I was people-pleasing, afraid if I didn't do the thing, I'd get punished or love would be withheld or whatever it is. And so that's an example of like tuning in and saying what I really want, putting what I really want out there in a way that's conscious of her needs. And so we found, it wasn't a compromise, it was a win-win. It generally was something she wanted to do, something I felt good about. And so that's a way to do it. Another example of a conflict that I know many people have had in the past few years is around medical procedures or medical practices or what's health and what's not. And if we stay at the surface, like to give this medication or not give that medication, especially to children in a married couple, well, we can be stuck. We're never, then we have to battle it out and try to, who's wrong, who's right, get into all this conflict and trying to destroy the other so that our position can prevail. And usually that never works. We just end up butting heads. But if we go down to the root, it's like we care. We want either our own personal health, or we want family health, or we want our children to be healthy. That's the root of it. We both want that. Or we flip it around and say, what's our fear? Our fear is that something's going to happen to ourselves, our partner, our kids, that we'll have to suffer or be this like caretaker, and it'll be drudgery and misery and all that. So we have the same root desires and root fears, common ground. That's where we start from. If we start from there, it's like, wow, we're on the same page. We both want the same thing. And then how do we work up from there and find a situation that works for both of us? To get to the point of, like, let's say, one wants one medical way and the other doesn't. Well, we have to come up with what are our principles? What are our guiding? How do we know or determine what's healthy or beneficial or what's not? Like, what are our guidelines, our principles, our sources? How do we get to the point of deciding what to do and whether it works or not? And I found that usually one person has a belief in, let's say, authority or the experts, or they basically outsource their choices to who they perceive to be the experts, people who know what they're doing. Like they've told themselves, or they believe, hey, this is too complicated for me, I don't want to look into it. These other people they're the experts, they must know. And so they trust in that system. And usually the other person is like, I looked into that, I know these people, they actually haven't looked into anything. I don't trust experts. I don't trust authority. I've had a past where that didn't work out for me. Those are competing belief systems. So at least we've named the dynamic. We have competing beliefs. And so it's like, how do we do that? Now, if it's with each other, like, oh, you choose your health, I choose mine, then that's one way. But then it's like, what do we do with our kids if we have competing belief systems? And one of the principles of successful relationship is letting our partner influence us. And this does many wonderful things to build the relationship, is that, we let each other know, hey, I trust you, I love you, I care about you, what you say matters to me, you matter to me. That's what happens. That's how we feel when someone takes in our information. They listen to us, they let it weigh on their decisions, their beliefs. They trust us more than they do some stranger or some faraway person, some authority, whoever it is. And this feels really good. It's a bonding, close, intimate thing. So if we start from, I'm going to let my partner influence me. So on the one side, the person who's outsourcing or who trusts, experts or authority, they have to trust the authority of their partner, the trust that their partner has put in the time to become an expert, or at least a high level of understanding of this thing. We have to, start there. We have to be willing to look into it and, at the very least, hear them out, like all the way. Like, let's look at all the things so that we can come to an understanding. And then the flip side, the person who doesn't trust authority, doesn't trust the experts, doesn't trust their sources, we have to take a different approach and ask ourselves, like do we trust, say, nature or the universe or God or whatever our word is, but the idea that we're all here on our own journey, having our own experience to learn something, and that even if someone does get hurt or some bad outcome happens, that it'll be a learning experience. Like maybe that's what our partner, that's what our child needs to learn this. That's the only way they're going to learn that. In other words, us beating them, trying to get them to submit to our belief system, that way doesn't work. It's never going to convince them. And so we have to trust in a way that it's all going to work out. we'll bring the information, we say the thing, and then we trust that even if, and air quotes, a bad thing happens, it will lead to a long-term good result that we'll learn, and it'll be a life lesson. At the very least, like, we trust that this is happening for a reason. This is being brought to us because there's something here for us. We need to learn this. And it's a pickle. It's like, what do you do? Like, if you can't get to the root of, like, oh, what's the truth here? Like, what is good or bad? And, it's hard. For myself personally, I've ended 2 relationships because of different belief systems. It's just, they were too important to me. The divide got too big, and we had parallel lives, and there was the amount of willingness to come together or influence each other got smaller and smaller, to the point that there was really nothing to talk about. We couldn't, the amount of things we could not talk about or even have a normal discussion about got so big that it's like, what? Why are we even together? Like, we disagree on so many things. And now I'm with someone who we have many similar beliefs, almost agree on everything. And so that from there, most importantly, we agree on principles, not like what we're going to eat or not eat, or what procedure to do or not do, but we have a principle on how we arrive at that decision that we share. And so from there, no matter what comes up, we apply the principle to find out if this is good or not good or bad, or how it's going to work. And then in the end, both like trust that, this is coming up for a reason. Let's stay open. Let's stay curious. And it's awesome. It's amazing. It's the first time in my life. So, like, having done it both ways in a relationship where our common ground, or, shared belief systems, or even principles, like, that was a big thing. No shared principles. It was hard, versus having shared principles. Like, there's other stuff that comes up, but at least we have that foundation to rely on or fall back on, or to build from. The foundation is there, and with those relationships that didn't work out, I still have to co-parent in that way. And it's been a process of trusting. Just, I do my work, my research. I find the truth, or what sounds like truth to me, based on principles, and how do I know what's what, and just being honest and open and sharing, and be willing to be seen. Say, hey, this is me. This is what I believe in. This is what I know to be true. And at first, there was resistance. Nobody came around. There was big pushback, but eventually started to win over people who were open. They started to go, oh, what this guy's saying makes sense, and he's not just making stuff up. He's actually looked into this, and so let's take a look, And so it long term it works out. Another example of this may be food, like what to eat, what not to eat. One of us might be like, let's just go to McDonald's. It's cheap, it's fine, like, who cares? And the other one's like, that's poison. Do you know what's in there? Like, oh my God. So if we stay there, we get stuck. But if we're like, okay, can I eat McDonald's once a month or once a week or whatever it is, and still survive, or can I let the other people eat there and just lighten up a little? Like, it's not the end of the world. We all eat junk now and again. It's like, it's okay. And so basically not willing to go to war over something if we can find a workable thing. Because otherwise, first it's fighting over fast food, and then it's like what flour to use at home, and whether this oil or, grass-fed butter, or this milk, no milk. And then, whereas if we just if we lighten up a little, people are more likely to listen to us, versus if we're like a total rigid, like super hard, like inflexible, and who wants to be around someone like that? Or it's hard to hear them. Whereas if they're just, if they just, over the years, they see that how we eat, or the way we do, has better results, that speaks pretty loudly, So just trust that it'll all work out, that they'll come around, or trust that they don't, and their journey is their journey, and they need to learn the hard way, or they need to, ride that one to the grave. Maybe they'll never come around. And then it's a decision for us. Do we want to participate? Maybe there's huge lessons there for us. I found that with my father and his health issues and cancer and all that whole process. I learned a ton. It was hard. And at the same time, I was about unconditional love. How can I love somebody where they're at, let them be where they're at, and not try to beat them up or make their choice wrong, or shame, blame, all that. Like, how does that help them through they're struggling. They're having a major health crisis, like belittling, undermining their attempt to heal, I don't think that's going to work. At least I made a decision that I didn't think it would help, and so I just turned to love. And we did have an amazing conversation through that process where we real heart to heart, the only time in my life. And so that's what I got out of it. And had I dug in and fought and all that and belittled and tried to change, probably would have never had that conversation. It just would have pushed him away, and he probably would have done it anyway, the same outcome. I was able to stay in love and learn a ton about how that system works and how it's not for me. In that scenario with my father, had he been more emotionally aware, I could have dropped down below and been like, Dad, I'm scared this isn't, or I'm scared of what's going to happen, or I wish we could talk about this, or something like that. Something neutral. How are you feeling? Are you scared? What? There would have been some common ground there, and we didn't have to talk about treatments. We could have met on the playing field of emotions where we share common ground. Probably both feeling scared and uncertain and afraid and not wanting to lose and all that. Basically, to sum up, if we stay at the top level and butt heads over the thing, the stuff, the what seems like the issue, we're never gonna be successful. Or I've never had it work that way. Have to go below and meet someone where they're at, connect over what we do have common ground on, and then from there work our way up. So real simple. Whatever the thing is, like, oh, I can we can start acknowledge, oh, I hear this is really important to you. What's this about for you? What does this do for you? Like, you like fine dining, you like really good meals at nice restaurants. What tell me more, let me hear it. What's this about for you? What do you like? Or if the other person's like, oh man, I'm afraid to, I like to save money. Like, oh really, what's that about for you? And then they'll be like, oh, it's about freedom and about being able to choose my own path and being able to escape or get out. If I don't like the way things are going, I can just tell the boss to beat it, or I can quit, or and I'm the master of my destiny, or whatever. That kind, they'll tell us if we actually listen, and then we can say, oh yeah, I understand that. I like to be free, or oh, I like tasty things. I like to have enjoyment. Yeah. So there's always common ground there, but we have to set aside the initial reaction we might have, or usually it's fear. We're not going to get what we want. We're going to lose. We're going to suffer. We're going to FOMO, And so, but if we can set that aside for a minute, be like, oh, okay, I know that's in me. Let's listen first. Like, what's that about for you?